if you can hear me, you've landed on 8:10 a.m. out of what used to be the local news station in the River Valley. My name is Grant Whitaker. I'm speaking from a cinder block room under the old Municipal Works garage on Front Street, just off the rail line that points east toward the broken skyline. The clock on the wall says 9:13 p.m., Wednesday, and the temperature down here is cool enough that my breath fogs when I stand near the stairwell. Outside, the wind drags loose signs down the street like tin kites, and every few minutes something metal gives up and slaps the pavement. If you're scanning, stop here. If you're scared, you're not alone. If you're still deciding whether this is real, I can't help you with that. The sirens took care of that debate 9 days ago. You want the short version. We got into a fight the world always said it was ready for, and then learned in one red hour what that brag was worth. The long version is what I can offer, piece by piece, as the power flickers and the batteries warm under my hand. This is a one-man station now. I carry the news, and the news carries me. I'll keep the transmitter on low during the minutes when the grid sags. If the carrier dips, wait 20 seconds. I bring it back as soon as the diesel stops coughing. If you can't hold 8:10 a.m., try shortwave 7.490 megahertz after dark. It rides better over the hills then. A few of you have already found me that way and left notes at the back door. I saved the ones with names. I read them at night to remember what people sound like when they write by candle. Here's how it started for me. The first things that felt wrong. 3 weeks ago, I was up before dawn to help my neighbor set up his bait stand by the river. He jokes that I only fish by microphone and never by line, but he likes the talk, and the coffee's free. The sky was flat gray, gulls circling the water plant, and my phone threw a time error that skipped it forward by a full day. Then it corrected, then it skipped again. The gas pumps at the truck stop wouldn't take cards for 20 minutes. Then they would. Then they wouldn't again. On the police scanner, I heard the aviation guard frequency crackle with voices that didn't belong to any pilot you'd want to hear on a good morning. Short bursts, numbers, a woman counting with a calm that felt like a levee holding. That same afternoon, the EAS chime rolled across 3 different local stations at once without a message attached, just the tone and then dead air. I made a note to ask the engineer. He never answered his text. The second day, I drove past the National Guard Armory and saw a line of vehicles that weren't any shade of green I knew. Mat trucks with tarped backs and antenna masts folded like praying branches. At the airport, planes sat nose in like geese stuck on ice, and a friend who loads freight out there said he watched baggage crews run pallets marked medical with zip ties and no manifests. That night, I turned on the old HF receiver and spun the dial across the high bands for what I used to consider hobby noise, coded bursts, long numbers, and a stern voice repeating what the forums call an EAM. I heard it 3 times in 2 hours, a woman reading groups that never show up on the ordinary news. If you've ever listened to late-night radio hoping to catch a comet of weirdness, you know the feeling. It wasn't weird. It was heavy, like someone tapping your shoulder in a store and then not speaking. On the 3rd morning, we had the rollover. The power grid fell into those soft brownouts that make your fridge complain. Street lights went dim. The water plant cut pressure for 2 hours. The hospital ran a generator test and kept running it for the rest of the day. My cousin in Baltimore texted that she saw helicopters hovering over a ship that had lost power in the harbor. Then she stopped texting. The TV news played a loop of an anchor at a desk with a graphic that said, "National Situation Update." No details, no ticker, just a stone face trying to fill time with a word salad about joint interagency coordination. I've never been so aware of filler in my life. Silence was honest. Those voices weren't. By the 5th day before impact, panic started to wear the shape of planning. The city posted a message about sheltering rooms. Seal one interior space with plastic and tape. Conserve water. Keep batteries warm. Grocery store lines wrapped into the aisles. Someone stood over a pallet of rice with their hands out like a crossing guard. People said they heard something on NOAA weather radio that didn't sound like weather. An intern I know at the station in Philly called me from a stairwell and said they were told to record 6 hours of generic emergency lines while the producers waited on clearance. He'd never said clearance about a news story in his life. I'm writing down these details because you start to think you imagined them. You didn't. You were being prepared without being told. The day before the sky opened, I got my last call from a friend who used to wear a uniform with a patch he wouldn't let me photograph. He asked me if I had fuel and if I had a place below ground. I said yes to both. He said, "Stay put. Don't try to drive east or north. If you can, aim your antenna west after dark." I asked what we were looking at. He paused. When the quiet stretched long enough to feel like a cut wire, he said, "Think submarines. Think fast flight times. The rest is just heat." He broke the line with a phrase I won't repeat, not because of secrecy, but because some words sit in a person like a shard. You leave them alone. I saw the first bloom at 4:26 p.m. 9 days ago. It rose beyond the city's tallest glass like a second sun growing out of the wrong horizon, and the sound that followed hit the chest before the ears. I didn't wait to argue about what it meant. I grabbed the go bag, the hand crank, the box of AA batteries, and I went underground to this room where the walls remember the weight of centuries of river water. For a long time, I held the radio and the wheel and waited for someone with a map to say what to do. Instead, the map turned blank. The EAS system chimed again and gave us the same instruction it always gives in storms. Stand by for official information. Official information did not stand by. It left. So here we are, day 9. The sky to the east glows at night like a city that forgot to dim. The east bank of the river has ash in the gutters. The freeway bridge is black ribbon. The cars on it melted into shapes that remind you of animals caught in fences. The rail yard to the south holds trains that don't ring the crossing bells anymore. The crows have the city to themselves, and the dogs move in pairs, careful like men on patrol. Every hour on the hour, I ping the band with the test call the engineers taught me. Station ID, frequency, location, then a simple plea. If you are alive and can speak, call in. I keep the call in short, because every extra second is diesel I won't have next week. I have some things for you tonight. A few warnings, a few lights, and a few voices who walked the last day and made it into the next. First, the fallout. The plume maps people drew on napkins by candle were not far off. The wind carried trouble northeast in the first 48 hours. If you're in the Lehigh Valley, if you're in northern Jersey, if you're on the south shore of Long Island, if you're inland from Boston, you might have seen the powder on cars like late snow. Don't brush it off with your sleeve. Don't stomp it down. If you have water, if you have even a trickle from a tap, rinse your doors and your sills and let it run toward the street. If you don't, cover what you can with wet cloth and wait for rain. Keep food sealed. Open nothing without wiping it first. I mean this. It's not perfect. It's something. For those with Geiger counters, and I know some of you do because your notes say so, Send me your ticks on the hour. Write them down on paper. Note your cross streets. Don't shout them through the door if you come by here. Slide the paper under with a name. I'm seeing counts double near the old post office and half as much closer to the west bluff. That tracks with the way the river bends wind. If you had a basement with stone walls, you're doing better than the people who stayed on top floors. If you had a crawl space, it's still better than a glass front view. I've heard some of you ask why the planes never came, why there was no net to catch the city. I can only tell you what people who know more than I do have told me. A tech from a radar array west of here said the sky went crowded in the space of 7 minutes. Not a slow build, a switch. He said the signatures came in low from C and then elsewhere at once, as if someone pressed every button they had. He said the decoys looked like rain on the scope. He said the countermeasure algorithms broke into a fight with themselves. He said they saw orders that didn't make sense, then no orders at all. He cried while he spoke, because he is the sort of man who thought the system he worked for would never cut him first. He said, "We were the ones who practiced." It was supposed to be our strong thing. I told him people will forgive him, and I hope I told the truth. If you're waiting for a hand with a seal to pull us up, I have to be honest. The only official thing I've heard for days that sounded like authority came from a repeat loop out of a state office 2 capitals away. It told healthy citizens not to move. It told injured citizens to shelter in place. It told the dead nothing, because a system can't speak to the dead. Since then, the quiet has felt like a policy. The National Guard posts on the West End have not handed out water since yesterday morning. They put up a sign that says, "Hold fast." A woman who was there said a sergeant looked at her and whispered, "I have 3 crates and 100 people." She said he wept when he said it, and then turned around so no one would watch him wipe his face. I'm keeping track of who is still standing where. If you want names and corners, I have them. I only share them when it helps. Supplies. If you can still walk, if you still have something to trade, head tomorrow at first light to the community college gym by the West Field. Don't bring a big bag. They turned one family back because their duffel looked like a grab. Bring a small backpack. Bring something that says who you are. No one is checking IDs. They're just trying to keep a shape to the line. They're asking for volunteers to carry buckets from the cistern behind the science building. They've got gravity water, and it tastes like metal, but it's wet and it's boiled. I know the man running the table. His name is Nate. He taught chemistry to kids who cracked jokes in the back row. He's got that look now, like he's teaching his last class with the same dry marker. Help him lift if you can. If you can't, sit on a bench and watch the kids. That helps too. Signal report. If you spin your dial between 3.2 and 3.3 megahertz at night, you can hear a slow voice out of what I think is Ohio. The man says he's in Lima, and he reads lists of addresses where people have taped red cloth to doors to signal they need a visit. I can't tell if the cloth is about health or hunger. It doesn't matter. The lists matter. If you have fuel and a safe route, pick one address and knock when the sun is high. Don't get clever. Help one, then go home. I have a survivor on a recorded line from this afternoon. The phones sometimes whisper a dial tone for a minute if you slap the side and breathe on the handset. I caught it and rang back a number someone had penciled on the table by the switch. A woman answered on the second ring. Her name is Marisol. She lives above the bakery on 4th Street, the one that burned and then wouldn't, then did. She said she slept in a tub for 3 nights, and last night she moved to the stairwell because it felt more like a hug than the tub. She said she hasn't heard a bird since day 3. When the wind shifts, She hears the distant thump of something settling in the east, like big drums falling down the stairs of the world. She wanted to ask if her brother, who works at the rail yard, made it out. I asked his name. She said Luis. I told her I would call out his name on every hour mark, and if anyone knows a Luis who wears a steel watch with a cracked face and a crooked smile, come by the door and leave a note. She didn't cry until she said, he promised to fix the bakery's espresso machine, and then the coffee would taste like it used to. I told her she should still leave a cup by the window. If he comes, he'll look for it by habit. Another voice. Big Jim from Amarillo came up on shortwave like thunder behind glass. He said the panhandle saw a light to the north, and then a sky that stayed wrong for hours. He's got cattle he can't move, and a well that still gives. He's boiling for neighbors and keeping a list on a feed sack with a blunt pencil. He told me to tell you not to throw away any bucket with a crack. He says a cracked bucket is a good bucket if you put a smaller bucket inside it. He says nothing should be wasted now, not even the habit of talking kind. He laughed once and said, I used to yell at the TV. Now I talk to these cows, and they listen better. Then his signal faded like a truck driving down a long road. I'm getting a weak pattern out of the coast by way of an amateur call sign that ends in KZ. He lives near a naval yard and says he counted 4 hulls that never left, floating but empty, as if the crews walked off like a store closing early. He says the water shines at night in colors he's never seen, and that the gulls are gone. He says when the wind comes from the east, it carries the smell of burned sugar and something that reminds him of old coins. He asked if he should keep the windows open to air out his house or shut them to keep out the dust. I told him to keep them shut and stuff a wet towel under the door. He said he's doing that, and he's reading a book he never had time to read, and he looks up every page or so expecting someone to come home. I wanted to make fun of myself for what I'm about to say, but there's no reason to be shy anymore. Read aloud if you're alone. The sound will keep you from thinking the walls are shrinking. I can feel you leaning toward the receiver, wanting a theory to hold. Here's what I've heard from the few people who still have clearance and conscience. There was a set of false positives on a northern radar chain 3 hours before the first strikes. That's not new to history, but the timing was. A packet of command messages went out that should have been followed by a second, clearer packet. It wasn't. A submarine task line in the North Atlantic broke silence at a time when breaking silence is either a drill or a funeral. Someone believed the funeral. Once one ladder was climbed, the other side followed, and then the word proportional lost its meaning. I'm not saying this to toss blame. I don't care about blame this week. I care about water and shelter and keeping our heads where they belong. Speaking of shelter, if you are still in an apartment above the 5th floor and you can come down safely, come down. Every foot of concrete above your head counts more than the view. A listener named Dev from Newark told me he moved his mother into the parking garage below their building along with 6 other families. They hang sheets to mark space and share a grill that someone saved from a balcony. He says it's not heaven, but the meter clicks slower down there. He says the worst part is the car alarm that still chirps every hour because someone's fob got stuck in a bag they can't find. He says they laugh when it goes off now because they need to laugh at something that isn't each other. I promised practical things. Fill your tub if you haven't, and if you still can. Even if the water looks clean, boil it if you can. A rolling boil kills more than worry. If you have a pressure cooker, it's your new best pot. If you have no heat, put a black pan in the sun. It won't be hot, but it will be warmer than shade. If you're short on light, Make a lantern with a jar of cooking oil and a cotton wick twisted from a shirt. Don't leave it alone. Fire is no one's friend in a week like this. If you're rationing batteries, remember that radios often run on less than full. Don't toss a battery just because it can't light a flashlight. Trade 3 tired cells for 1 talkative hour. Movement. I've seen military trucks on the river road with their lights off. They run in 3s, then 6, then nothing for an hour. They don't stop if you wave, and you shouldn't stand close. I know someone who tried. He got a hand signal that said back up without the hand stopping. There are rumors of martial law in the next state west. I can't confirm it. I can only tell you that the checkpoints I've heard about let walkers through easier than drivers. If you must move, carry papers of any form, school IDs, library cards, even a photo pushed into a sleeve, and keep your hands visible when you approach. Talk slow. Tell them where you're going in a sentence. I'm going to my sister's on 12th Street to bring water and then come back. They like sentences with a destination and a return. To those who can't sleep, I get it. Closing your eyes makes a theater where your mind runs the news with more color than daylight. When that happens, sit up and make lists in the dark. Write anything. 3 things you can still count on. 2 people you want to help. 1 thing you'll do when the morning comes. That's not just a trick. It gives your hands a job. It tells your head you're still the boss. I should say this. Grief will show up in odd clothes. You'll find yourself angry at a pan, sobbing at a label on a soup can, laughing at a word you haven't used since you were 10. Let it pass through. If you have a kid with you, tell them the truth in small bites and give them jobs. Kids who carry water think about the weight of water and not the weight of the sky. I heard from a father in York who made his son the light captain. The kid guards the batteries and checks them like coins. They both feel better because they made a title. Titles still have magic, even now. I took a walk at noon today with a mask and a hood and a pair of old ski goggles someone left in the garage office. I wanted to see if the small grocery on Willow had anyone left. The front windows were gone, but in the back room there were 2 people sorting cans into neat stacks. They were careful with dented ones, setting them aside, writing something on them with a marker, maybe boil long or for later. They were quiet, and they moved like people who know they're being watched by something that isn't a person. I knocked on the door frame and said my name and my station, and asked if they needed anything. The woman looked at the floor, then at me, and said, "We need someone to say a date out loud who isn't guessing." I told her the date. She wrote it on a box. It felt like I'd given her a blanket. Some of you have asked about the animals. The animal control line rings and rings. The shelters locked their doors, then opened them, then locked them again. Here's what I've seen. Cats in pairs, sticking to the edges of buildings. Dogs moving with a purpose that looks like patrol. Birds acting like old men. Quiet, always looking for a bench. If you have pet food, share a cup with a stray every other day. It keeps them from panicking, and it keeps you from forgetting how to share. Don't let them inside if you can help it. I know it's hard. Our skin wants fur when we're scared. But we're tracking dust with our boots and our coats, and they lick their paws. On the subject of health, I have a nurse's note from a woman named Claire, who worked at the clinic under the highway. She says the common injuries now are cuts from broken glass, sprains from carrying water, and burns from makeshift stoves. She says clean water and patience fix the first 2 most of the time. Burns are harder. If you get one, cool it with clean water for a long time, not ice. Cover it with something clean and dry. clean, not fancy. Don't pop blisters. They're the body's own bandage. She says the worst infections she's seen came from people who thought ashes made a cut clean. They don't. She says the best medicine she gave this week was a gentle hand while she told a woman that her husband's fever meant his body was still fighting. I'm passing that on, because words can move through walls when supplies can't. Fuel. Don't run a generator inside. I shouldn't have to say that, but someone dragged a small engine into a kitchen, and now their cousins are writing their names on a sheet of lined paper at the shelter. Run it outside, far from doors, downwind if you can. It's better to be cold than asleep forever. If you're out of gasoline, think about what really needs power. Radios sip. Freezers guzzle. Eat from the freezer now. Save the canned beans for next week when you'll wish you had them. If your stove is dead, build a rocket stove out back with bricks and a can. It heats fast and burns little. Don't pick wood from the fire that coated your street. Anything with a chemical smell is not for your mouth. I'm going to say a list of names now. If you know them, if you are them, if you can send a word, stop by the back door or call on the half hour. Luis from the rail yard, Marisol above the bakery, Nate at the college, Dev in the garage, Claire at the clinic, Big Jim at the panhandle fence, the man with the call sign ending in KZ near the harbor, a kid named Theo who left a note that said, "Dad went to get Mom. If he comes back, tell him I'm at Miss H's house." Miss H, if Theo is with you, please hang a white sheet on your third floor window at noon tomorrow. I'll send someone to check. If you can't, tuck a note under the back door here. I sent a neighbor to patrol the block twice a day for notes. He wears a bill cap that says, "Go Birds." He's slow, but he's steady. There's something else I should say, because I can feel it in my bones, and I'd rather take the sting out of it than let it surprise you. There will be days when no one answers. There will be hours when the band is empty, and the only sound you get is the soft hiss of space between stations. When that happens, don't take it as a sign that you're the last one. Think of it as a town whose people pulled their blinds for a storm. We lift them again when the wind dies a little. And it does. It always dies a little eventually. A word to the ones who wear badges or used to. You are not the enemy. I know some people have said hard things at the checkpoints. I know some have walked past you with their heads down. You're tired, and you're getting orders that are just as thin as the ones we're not getting. If you can, use your spot to spread simple truths. Where the water is, where the clinics are, where the quiet streets are. Put your head together with the people who have pickup trucks, but not much else. Use them to ferry. You can make a convoy that looks like a parade if you plan it well, and people remember parades as safe. I'll keep this part short because it feels like I'm trying to play a hymn on a radio dial. But hope is a tool like any other. Keep it on the shelf where you can reach it, not locked in a glass case. Use it when your hands shake. Use it to get your kids to drink water. Use it when you stand in a stairwell and tell yourself one more hour, then another. The world is not ending in a clean line. It is fraying. We can knot the frays where they fall in our hands. For anyone on the road tonight near the mile markers west of town, there's a burned-out semi blocking the fast lane by the old mill exit. 2 sedans are behind it. If you move through, keep to the shoulder and flash a light 3 times before you go. People will move. They're good. They're scared, but they're good. The man who used to sell coffee at the park is sitting by the ramp with a bag of apples. He expects nothing. If you have something small, drop it by his foot and keep driving. You don't need thanks to know it landed right. The batteries are warming up, which means the generator will need a break. Here's what happens when I go down. The carrier drops for 20 seconds. The room goes quiet in a way that makes me hear my own breath. Then I pull the rope and it coughs, and it catches, and the lights flicker like old theater lights coming up on a scene you didn't ask to star in. I'll bring the signal back. If you lose me, try the shortwave. If you still can't hear, count to 100 and then listen again. I'll be there if the diesel gives me its mercy. Before I cycle, I want to leave you with a plain list for morning. Boil what you drink. Wipe every can you open. Keep kids busy with jobs that matter. Move down, not up. Trade in small fair trades. Share news, not rumors. Put names on doors where help is needed. Write down what you see. Memory slips in weeks like this. This is 8:10 a.m., shortwave 7.490 megahertz after dark, broadcasting from the west side of a river that still moves. My name is Grant Whitaker. I am a person with a transmitter and a pocket notebook, and I am not going anywhere tonight. If you're out there, breathe steady. If you have to cry, cry fast and then drink water. I'll call the roll at the top of the hour and read any names you slide under the door. I'll listen for yours. Stay with me. Stay. This is still 8:10 a.m., shortwave 7.490 after dark, and I'm still Grant in the room under the Municipal Works garage. I just stepped out to the stairwell and held my hand near the gap where the doorframe doesn't seal. The wind is carrying something that sounds like grit sweeping a steel pan. The clock on the wall gave me 10:02 p.m. I read the roll, and a name answered back. If you know Marisol above the bakery, sit down. A man who said he was at mile marker 42 on the westbound told me he pulled a kid and a woman out of a stalled van near the old mill exit, and the woman kept repeating, "Bakery steps, bakery steps." He asked her for a name and got Marie. He couldn't swear to the last syllable. He dropped them at the college gym, said the kid wouldn't let go of a brown paper bag that crinkled like it had coffee beans in it. That last detail felt like the kind of thing a liar skips. I told him to go back in the morning if the road holds. He said he would, and he left 3 apples by the coffee man's feet, just like I asked earlier. He said the coffee man nodded without looking up. I can picture it. Some gestures are older than us. A thin voice found me on the half hour from a little transistor with a proud crackle. "This is Dev," it said, and then there was a cough, and the world thinned around his breath. "Garage is holding. Mom is wrapped in blankets like a cinnamon roll. We hung a bedsheet for Theo, like you said. 3rd floor window. Noon. If you're close to 12th and Pine, look up at noon for a white sheet and a kid with a serious face guarding a shoebox of batteries. If you can spare 2 AA cells, tuck them in an envelope and write Light Captain on the front. Names and titles help people remember they matter. I checked the shortwave between the hour and the half, and I heard something I haven't heard in 9 nights. A time signal. Not the clear voice out of Colorado. This one was softer, thinner, like someone rebuilt a watch from 3 different watches and wound it as far as it would go. On 10 megahertz, there was a tick, then another, then a long beep at the minute, and a voice I couldn't place saying, "Coordinated." Then it fell into a hiss like a soda left open. It came back 3 minutes later. If that was WWV limping back on a backup, bless every engineer who burned their fingers to get it up. If it was a ham with a clock and a good heart, bless them too. Either way, if you can hear it where you are, set something by it. Even a kitchen timer, even your pulse. Having a minute that belongs to everyone is a kind of warm blanket. Let me tell you about the bridge tonight. At dusk, I watched the river surface under the freeway through a pair of scratched lenses. The water moved the way a body moves when it's asleep, but dreaming hard. Slow on top, quick below. Little ripples breaking around half-sunk tires. Two men in orange city vests were pulling a chain from the bank. They had clipped it to the bumper of a truck that leaned nose first into the mud, like a horse that laid down on the job and decided to be a log instead. Every time they leaned, the chain sang and the truck shifted an inch, and they leaned again, and one of them said very clearly, "Come on now," not to the truck, but to himself. I didn't call out. I learned in this week that calling out breaks a kind of courage that doesn't want an audience. If those two hear this, I saw you. The city is still here because you keep doing little dumb hard things, more on the quiet from above. I got a note under the door in pencil on the back of a grocery list. It said, "From a friend at the State House. Contingency office moved to the Aquifer Control Building, north of the Beltway. Staff of 12, 1 satellite phone, 1 printer, 1 man who knows the password to the EAS encoder. They are rationing words." The note had a phone number with 3 digits the same in the middle, and a warning. Don't call unless you're bleeding or boiling. Then there was a second line in a different hand. We need salt tablets. If you have packets from old summer sports kits or restaurant shakers that didn't crack, bring them to the gym. Dehydration sneaks up the stairs even in cold air. People think winter is safe. It isn't. Thirst wears a mask. A theory from a voice that used to sit in a windowless room with screens. He said the first burns from the east came in odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, and the counter shots came in even, 2, 4, 6, and that the pattern mattered to someone who once wrote a book about how to make a machine hesitate. He said the machine hesitated. He said there was a 5-minute span when a human could have stepped in and said, "Stop." He said no one did because the line to the room where someone could say stop was full of other people already saying things louder that weren't stop. He said he went outside after and threw up and looked at the sky and saw nothing at all that looked like what he did for a living. He asked me if I would say out loud that he is sorry. I said it. If you were waiting to hear that from someone with a badge, here it is. He's sorry. He's going back to his post in the morning because switches still need fingers. I promise to give you places that are safe-ish for a minute. Here are 2.5. The basement of St. Mary's on the West Hill. Father Quinn is handing out tea that tastes like memories and telling kids the story about the dog that found its way home by following a sausage truck for 20 miles. The laundromat on Cedar, where the owner, Ms. Y, keeps the door half open and runs 2 washers at a time as water allows, charging nothing but asking for stories to keep her awake, and half of the library on Oak, because the East Stack took a hit, but the children's room survived, and a retired teacher named Lorna is reading picture books to whoever will sit, giving adults 10 minutes to breathe with their eyes closed. If you go, go soft. These are thin places held together by nerves and tape. A call came in from the edge of the industrial park. A man named Keon said the warehouse with the blue stripe has pallets of paper towels and toilet paper stacked to the rafters. "It's like a museum of boredom," he said, and we both laughed, and then he got quiet and said, "But no food." I asked if he saw forklifts. He saw one with a bent tine and another that needed a battery. If anyone knows a way to hotwire a forklift without setting off a horn that will bring every lonely ear for a mile, write it down and slide it under my door. We're building a book down here of dumb, useful tricks. How to siphon from a low tank without tasting gasoline. How to turn a shopping cart into a hand truck. how to string line between windows to dry wet rags without turning your alley into a flag show for the wrong eyes. When this is over, we'll bind it. For now, we share it. Someone asked about the trains. 2 nights ago, there was a noise like a metal groan that didn't stop, and no one could place it. This afternoon, I found out why. A man from the rail yard with a beard like a broom said a string of tank cars compressed on the curve by the foundry when the yard lost pressure in the lines. The couplers kissed too hard, and the whole set breathed out at once. That's the groan we heard. He said the tanks hold ethanol and they're stable enough if no one plays cowboy with a cutting torch. He posted 2 men with thermometers on poles at either end of the string. If you're the sort who needs to do something to feel sane, sit with them for an hour. Bring a blanket and a thermos and be a pair of eyes. Boredom saves neighborhoods. I'm going to say a few words about night lungs and morning legs. Night lungs is what I call the feeling when the air thins tall in the chest after sunset. It's not panic. Well, it is. But it's the kind that starts in the body, and then the head invents reasons. Drink warm water. Sit with your back against a wall. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Do it 8 times. Stop. If you start again, choose a different number, so your brain doesn't turn it into a rule it can punish you with if you miss. Morning legs is what your calves feel like when you climb stairs after hauling water twice. Stretch before you carry. Bend the knees. Lean on the strong side. We don't have therapists down here. We have little recipes like this that break the day into pieces that can be chewed. I have a message for a man named Luis with a steel watch and a crooked smile. Luis, if you were at the yard when the groan happened, Marisol is at the gym, or will be by the morning with a kid who won't let go of a bag of coffee beans. She left a cup by the window like you said you'd look for. If you can't get to her, knock 3 times on the metal door behind the bakery loading dock at noon, and I'll send someone to walk with you. If you can't knock, leave a note in the mailbox of the barber 2 doors down. I know the barber. He still oils his clippers every night like church. Crossing to another corner of the map, the voice out of Lima read more addresses at 9:40. He's using a code now because someone told him people were listening who don't knock soft. He says, red ribbon instead of red cloth, blue porch instead of second floor, dog asleep for alone, dog awake for armed. If you heard your house described with a dog, write me a note and tell me if you want him to keep reading or to skip you. Consent still matters, even now, maybe more now. There's a rumor about the lake north of us. People say fish are washing up belly up by the dozens. A woman named Etta, who has hands like a pianist and runs a bait shop, says that happens after lightning strikes too, and she isn't ready to call it doom yet. She's skimming the surface at dawn with a window screen nailed into a frame and composting what she finds far from the shore. She says if anyone sees a deer drinking and then falling, don't drink there. If you see raccoons still washing their food at the edge, it's likely better than a block closer to the plant. Animals are canaries with fur. Watch them. They'll vote with their feet. I'd like to tell you about a small good thing that happened at 8:17 p.m. because small good things evaporate fast if you don't say them quick. A boy of maybe 9 slipped a note under the door with a cracker and half a wrapped candy. The note said, "For your throat." That was the whole note. I put the cracker in my pocket to eat slower later and tucked the candy on the shelf where I keep my spare pencil, so I see it. If the boy is listening, you made a grown man pause before he said the next serious thing. That pause is the size of a porch light left on. It matters. Insiders keep whispering about 2 words, Decapitation strike. Don't let the TV writer's sound of it fool you. It means openers aimed at places where people with keys sit behind doors. That tracks with what we're living. Cities that held less power than they had in brochures are still standing smoke-high and quiet. Capitals and command posts blinked out like someone clicked a mouse. If that's true, then the slow restart won't come from a bouquet of press conferences. It will look like water tanks being filled by kids with rope scars on their palms and technicals idling at corners while a man with a clipboard counts who goes in and who comes out. That doesn't mean we never get a broadcast with a seal again. It means we should stop waiting for it before we check on the neighbor with the broken porch step. There's a thin thread out of the South tonight. A woman in Richmond read a list of pharmacies with doors still on hinges. She said they're keeping insulin in picnic coolers with the ice they can make and giving it first to people who show a vial with a name sharpied on it. If that's you, bring your old vial. Don't be proud. Pride is dry and brittle. It cracks when you need a bridge. And if you have insulin, you don't need because of a death in the family, and you can face that sentence. Bring it. You will hate the walk and love the drop. A listener asked if the sky will ever look right again. I don't know what right means now. Tonight the east has a dull bruise and the west a thin, clear band where Venus should be. The high smoke makes stars multiply and blur, like someone breathed on glass. I'm not saying this to make poetry out of a thing that doesn't deserve it. I'm saying it because you'll look up and feel wrong inside and think the wrong is you. It isn't. The dome above us has a fever. It will break a little and then it will come back and then it will drift. Don't chart your heart to it. Chart your heart to whether the kid under your roof ate twice and smiled once. Practical. If you have a bicycle, oil the chain with cooking oil if that's all you have. Air the tires with a hand pump, or even a soccer ball pump if you can maneuver the needle. Load it with light stuff only. Food is heavy. Water is lead. Tools are deceitful. You think you need all of them, and then you use one. Choose one. Tape it to the frame. Wrap the tape all the way around twice. It turns into a bandage if you need it. If you're riding at dawn, tie a white rag to the handlebar end so it flutters. That's a new language on the road. White is not a flag. It is a word. Passing. I said I'd be honest about the way my own head is walking. I'm tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. It sits in the wrists and behind the eyes. Sometimes the words bunch up behind my teeth, and I think, if I open my mouth wrong, they'll all fall out, and I'll never get them back in order. Then a name comes through the static, or a knock, or a candy with a note, and the words line up like they used to for a half hour, and I can say a few that help. That's the job now. Help for a half hour at a time. Then eat a cracker. Then boil water. Then sit with the quiet. Then help some more. I'm going to use the next few minutes to read addresses where a single candle in a window means check on me if you're on that block tomorrow. 314 West Fern, basement door. 22 Maple Court, Unit B, back staircase only. 507 River Lane, side entrance with the black mailbox taped shut. 9 Fisherman's Row, second floor front, knock 3 and pause 2. 118 Laurel, the porch with a broken swing, and 2 Quarry View, ground level, window chalked with a heart. If you don't live on those blocks, don't wander. If you do, be a neighbor. Bring 1 can and an empty jug. Leave with news and a new name. A short word to anyone with a badge still making rounds. Put chalk marks near the curb where you clear a building and write the hour. If your chalk runs out, charcoal from a grill works. Don't mark inside. Outside tells the next hands what you did. If you're running a checkpoint, Write the next door's location on a piece of cardboard and hold it up now and then. People decide better when they can picture their own feet on a map. I keep remembering a line from a voicemail my dad left me after a winter storm years ago. The power had been out for 3 days, and he said, "We are finding out what we can do without." And it turns out the list is longer than we thought, but shorter than we'd like. That's where we are. We can do without the noise we used to pour into the hours between dinner and sleep. We cannot do without each other. We cannot do without clean water and names said out loud. Top of the next hour coming up in a few, and I'll call the roll again and take names. If you wrote a note, I'll read it if it helps more than it hurts. If it hurts more than it helps, I'll carry it in my pocket until the day it helps. I'll also try that number to the Aquifer building and see if someone with that password wants to spend a few words on the people listening. If they do, I'll pass them through. If they don't, we'll keep the minutes anyway. This is 8:10 a.m. with a hand on the dial and another on a notebook, and when I step away to feed the diesel, I count to 20, and then I come back. If you lose me, try 7.490 after the generator coughs. If both go dark, talk to someone near you and trade a story for a cup of water. That's not sentiment. That's logistics for the soul. I'll be here on the other side of the minute. It's Grant again. 11:09 p.m. and the wind outside has changed direction. It isn't whistling anymore. It's dragging. Every few seconds it pauses, as if it's trying to remember how to move. There's a metallic smell rising off the street, the kind you get when rain hits rust that's been sitting too long. Someone told me that means the ash is damp enough to fall heavier. If that's true, keep your buckets outside. Let the sky refill what the pipes won't. The shortwave out of Lima is gone tonight. In its place, I caught a low hum, steady and thin, like the leftover tone of a television when it used to sign off for the night. It repeats every 12 seconds. Maybe it's a power relay. Maybe a heartbeat from a generator that forgot how to die. Either way, if you can hear it on your end, you're in range of life. Some machine still believes it has a job. I spent part of the evening reading through the papers people slid under the door. They come folded and careful, even now. There's something reverent about handwriting on lined paper in a world without screens. One letter caught me hard. It was from an older man named Ron, a retired postmaster from the north side. He said he's been sorting people's notes by street, putting them into the same bins he once used for mail. He wrote, "It feels right. Like I'm still sending something somewhere." He signed it, "Yours en route." I don't think he meant it as poetry, but it is. The Aquifer number answered. A woman picked up. Her voice had that hollow echo of a headset in a concrete room. She didn't say her name. She said, "You've reached coordination line west." I told her I was running the emergency frequency for this valley, asked if she wanted to issue a statement. She said, "We don't issue. We receive." Then she asked me for a list of the towns still responding. When I told her the names, she whispered them back, each one slower, like she was laying bricks. Fairview, Lancaster, Pine Hollow. All right. Then she said, "Tell your people that the water levels are stable. Tell them we are still drawing from the deep wells." I asked if that meant safe to drink. She said, "It means not yet poison." Then the line clicked. So that's what I'm telling you. Our water isn't poison yet. Boil it. Pray over it. Whatever works for your hands. I've been thinking about the day before all this started. How ordinary it was. I was in line at a convenience store buying batteries and bread. The clerk asked if I wanted a receipt, and I said no, because whoever needs proof of bread. She laughed. I can still see her laugh when I close my eyes. I think about that a lot now. How nobody ever knows when they're living the last normal hour of their life. I walked out earlier to check the streetlight. It flickered 3 times, and then stayed dark. Across the road, there's a house with its curtains drawn, but a candle burns behind the glass. It's the only steady light left in this block. I thought about knocking, but I didn't. Sometimes hope is just knowing someone else is still awake. Let's talk about medicine again. If you're running low on painkillers, there's a pharmacy on Hillcrest that didn't burn. The doors are locked, but the side window is cracked near the loading bay. A note taped there says, "Take what you need. Leave what you can. If you go, wear gloves, keep your face covered, and take only sealed bottles. Don't touch the syrup bottles. They could be spoiled from heat. There's a tin cash box under the counter. If you can, drop in something, even a coin. That box is the last working economy we have." A woman named Gloria called in around 10:45. She said she's been hearing distant booms at regular intervals, always around midnight. She's near the rail yard, so it might be tank ruptures settling, but she swore it sounded like deep thunder coming from underground. She said, "It's not the kind of noise you hear. It's the kind you feel in your ribs." I told her I'd heard the same thing once, back when the blast hit the East Bank. Maybe it's pressure vents from old sewer lines or shifting foundations. Maybe it's something else. I didn't tell her the truth, that every time I hear it, I whisper to myself, "Not again." Before I came down here tonight, I saw 2 figures walking along the median toward the bridge. They had flashlights wrapped in cloth to dim the beam. They moved together, step for step. That kind of coordination means they've been doing it a while. Scavengers, maybe, or runners between shelters. They stopped at a burned-out car and stood there for a minute like they were reading it. Then one of them lifted their arm and drew a cross in the air with the light. The other nodded, and they walked on. I don't know what that means, but I hope it means they're mapping something. Turns, safe houses, memories. If you're out there walking, start marking doors. Chalk, paint, blood if you have to. A circle means alive, an X means checked. A triangle means kids inside. These marks might outlive our voices. I had a brief flash of signal from the West Ridge, someone broadcasting in bursts. It sounded military, but the language was clipped, not American. I caught words that might have been coordinates, maybe frequencies. I wrote them down. 49.32 minus 81.77, 0314 UTC. I don't know what they mean yet, but I'll say them again at the top of every hour in case someone else recognizes them. If they're rescue points, someone should know. A listener asked if the ash is safe to touch now that it's wet. Number. It sticks to skin and carries things that aren't meant to be carried. If you touch it, wash right away. Don't use alcohol. It opens pores. Use soap or even dirt and water, and wipe until you see your real color again. The diesel's getting low. I'll have to shut it off for a few minutes soon. When the hum drops, that's not goodbye. It's just a breath. Before that, I want to read a short note found wedged in a vent upstairs. It's written in blue pen, shaky. If anyone finds this, we're heading north on bikes. We've got 2 kids and a dog that won't stop barking. The air smells cleaner the farther we go. If the river bridge holds, follow the tracks west. We'll leave chalk marks of suns. It's signed, Tom and Elise. If you find suns drawn on the tracks, follow them until you can't. Not because they'll save you, but because someone cared enough to draw them. This is Grant Whitaker on 810 AM, And I'm still here, still breathing in time with the generator. When it cuts, I'll be back. Count to 60, then listen again. And if I don't come back right away, just talk out loud to whoever's near you. If you can still hear me, it means there's still a world to listen. Grant again. Midnight. The generator coughed twice before it caught, like it didn't want to keep going. I know the feeling. The air outside is wet with something that isn't quite rain. When I leaned my head up the stairwell, I could hear drops hitting metal, but not see them. It's not water. It's heavier, thicker. When it hits the ground, it leaves little black freckles on the concrete that don't spread. Someone told me earlier the fallout dust has mixed with fog, turning it into what the old books called black drizzle. Don't let it touch your tongue. Don't collect it in buckets. I'm repeating that for the ones half asleep. Don't drink the rain tonight. The candle across the street is out. Either they fell asleep or ran out of wax. I can still see the reflection where it was, a faint smear of light in the glass. You don't realize how much company a single candle gives you until it's gone. A shortwave message reached me 10 minutes ago from someone calling himself Northern Relay. The signal was full of static, but I caught enough. Safe corridor forming west to Cleveland. Convoys moving under cover. Follow red markings on road signs. 3 stripes vertical. Checkpoint every 30 miles. Then the signal went dead. I don't know if that's real or bait. It sounds like hope, and hope's a dangerous shape in the dark. If you try it, move at dawn, not before. Keep light low. Take food that doesn't rustle. At 11:47, before the diesel quit, a man came to the door. First visitor in 2 days. He looked about 50, wearing a fire jacket with no department name, just the letters E3. He said his name was Hollis. He heard me on the radio and walked 5 miles from the industrial park. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from the dust. He told me his station tried to run rescue for 3 days after the flash, pulling people from under collapsed row houses. Then the truck seized up when the fuel went bad, and the last order they got was to secure water sources. He said that meant guard the hydrants, but when no one came, they gave up. He's asleep now on the floor with his coat rolled under his head. I keep catching myself staring at him just to make sure he's breathing. He brought a small notebook, names and addresses of everyone they pulled out alive. It's barely a dozen pages, written tight, like he was afraid to waste ink. I'll read them later. Add them to the list. A woman's voice broke through the static around 12:15. Thin, brittle southern accent. Said she's in Roanoke. Power's out. The mountains glow faint red at night. She keeps seeing drones, small ones, circling silently, no lights, just faint hums. She said one crashed near her farm. Inside, she found a camera, a small disc, and a note folded under the battery. It read, "Observe, record, endure." She buried it in the orchard. Then she said, "If they built them to watch us die, I hope they see us keep breathing instead." I keep thinking about that line. Observe, record, endure. That's all I'm doing, isn't it? Keeping witness until someone else can take over. There's talk of tremors west of the mountains. People feel them through their boots. Low vibrations that last less than a second. Some say it's silos caving in. Others say it's underground detonation cleanup. Either way, don't stand under power lines when you feel one. They sing before they fall. If you have a mirror, tape it to your wall opposite a candle or flashlight. It doubles your light without doubling your fuel. Small tricks. But that's how we keep the dark honest. I tried to call the aquifer line again. This time it rang and rang, then clicked and gave a recorded voice. Coordination suspended. Personnel relocated. Remain sheltered. Then it looped. That means the people there left, but they cared enough to leave a recording. That counts for something. I need to read a few more names before I rest the generator. Hollis E., firefighter, industrial sector. Gloria, rail yard, hearing low thunder. Marisol and the boy at the college gym. Luis, if alive, knock 3 times tomorrow. Ron, the postmaster of lost letters. The 2 at the bridge pulling the truck. Tom and Elise following the sun chalk. If you hear your name, know you're not forgotten. At 12:45, I walked the door again. The sky was glowing faint orange like the embers of a dying fire stretched across the clouds. I could hear the faraway crackle of something burning. Not buildings, but fields. Maybe forest. Maybe fuel. The smell of it carried through the cracks in the doorway. It didn't smell like smoke. It smelled like hot coins. I know there are people still out there. I can feel it in the pauses between static. Somewhere, in the spaces the noise doesn't reach, someone else is talking. If you're listening, this is Grant Whitaker, 8:10 a.m. Still alive. Still transmitting. Still holding this line until the light comes back. Stay low. Stay kind. Stay